but he did not for this alter his resolve. On the same evening he went alone to the house named to him. Poverty, dirt, and squalid mystery characterized its appearance. Alas, thought Raymond, I have much to do before England becomes a paradise. He knocked. The door was opened by a string from above. The broken, wretched staircase was immediately before him, but no person appeared. He knocked again vainly, and then, impatient of further delay, he ascended the dark, creaking stairs. His main wish, more particularly now that he witnessed the abject dwelling of the artist, was to relieve one, possessed of talent, but depressed by want. He pictured to himself a youth, whose eyes sparkled with genius, whose person was attenuated by famine. He half feared to displease him, but he trusted that his generous kindness would be administered so delicately as not to excite repulse. What human heart is shut to kindness? And though poverty, in its excess, might render the sufferer unapt to submit to the supposed degradation of a benefit, the zeal of the benefactor must at least relax him into thankfulness. These thoughts encouraged Raymond as he stood at the door of the highest room of the house. After trying vainly to enter the other apartments, he perceived just within the threshold of this one a pair of small Turkish slippers. The door was ajar, but all was silent within. It was probable that the inmate was absent, but secure that he had found the right person, our adventurous protector was tempted to enter, to leave a purse on the table, and silently depart. In pursuance of this idea, he pushed the door open gently, but the room was inhabited. Raymond had never visited the dwellings of want, and the scene that now presented itself struck him to the heart. The floor was sunk in many places, the walls ragged and bare, the ceiling weather-stained. A tattered bed stood in the corner. There were but 2 chairs in the room, and a rough broken table, on which was a light in a tin candlestick. Yet in the midst of such drear and heart-sickening poverty, there was an air of order and cleanliness that surprised him. The thought was fleeting, for his attention was instantly drawn towards the inhabitant of this wretched abode. It was a female. She sat at the table. One small hand shaded her eyes from the candle, the other held a pencil. Her looks were fixed on a drawing before her, which Raymond recognized as the design presented to him. Her whole appearance awakened his deepest interest. Her dark hair was braided and twined in thick knots, like the headdress of a Grecian statue. Her garb was mean, but her attitude might have been selected as a model of grace. Raymond had a confused remembrance that he had seen such a form before. He walked across the room. She did not raise her eyes, merely asking in Romaic, "Who is there?" "A friend," replied Raymond in the same dialect. She looked up wondering, and he saw that it was Evadne Zaimi. Evadne, once the idol of Adrian's affections, and who, for the sake of her present visitor, had disdained the noble youth, and then, neglected by him she loved, with crushed hopes and a stinging sense of misery, had returned to her native Greece. What revelation of fortune could have brought her to England, and housed her thus? Raymond recognized her, and his manner changed from polite beneficence to the warmest protestations of kindness and sympathy. The sight of her, in her present situation, passed like an arrow into his soul. He sat by her, he took her hand, and said 1,000 things, which breathed the deepest spirit of compassion and affection. Evadne did not answer. Her large dark eyes were cast down. At length a tear glimmered on the lashes. "Thus," she cried, "kindness can do what no want, no misery ever effected. I weep." She shed indeed many tears. Her head sunk unconsciously on the shoulder of Raymond. He held her hand. He kissed her sunken, tear-stained cheek. He told her that her sufferings were now over. No one possessed the art of consoling like Raymond. He did not reason or declaim, but his look shone with sympathy. He brought pleasant images before the sufferer. His caresses excited no distrust, for they arose purely from the feeling which leads a mother to kiss her wounded child, a desire to demonstrate in every possible way the truth of his feelings, and the keenness of his wish to pour balm into the lacerated mind of the unfortunate. As Evadne regained her composure, his manner became even gay. He sported with the idea of her poverty. Something told him that it was not its real evils that lay heavily at her heart, but the debasement and disgrace attendant on it. As he talked, he divested it of these, sometimes speaking of her fortitude with energetic praise, then, alluding to her past state, he called her his princess in disguise. He made her warm offers of service. She was too much occupied by more engrossing thoughts, either to accept or reject them. At length he left her, making a promise to repeat his visit the next day. He returned home, full of mingled feelings, of pain excited by Evadne's wretchedness, and pleasure at the prospect of relieving it. Some motive for which he did not account, even to himself, prevented him from relating his adventure to Perdita. The next day he threw such disguise over his person as a cloak afforded, and revisited Evadne. As he went, he bought a basket of costly fruits, such as were natives of her own country, and throwing over these various beautiful flowers, bore it himself to the miserable garret of his friend. "Behold," cried he, as he entered, "what bird's food have I brought for my sparrow on the housetop." Evadne now related the tale of her misfortunes. Her father, though of high rank, had in the end dissipated his fortune, and even destroyed his reputation and influence through a course of dissolute indulgence. His health was impaired beyond hope of cure, and it became his earnest wish, before he died, to preserve his daughter from the poverty which would be the portion of her orphan state. He therefore accepted for her, and persuaded her to accede to a proposal of marriage from a wealthy Greek merchant settled at Constantinople. She quitted her native Greece, her father died, by degrees she was cut off from all the companions and ties of her youth. The war, which about a year before the present time had broken out between Greece and Turkey, brought about many reverses of fortune. Her husband became bankrupt, and then, in a tumult and threatened massacre on the part of the Turks, they were obliged to fly at midnight, and reached in an open boat an English vessel under sail, which brought them immediately to this island. The few jewels they had saved supported them a while. The whole strength of Evadne's mind was exerted to support the failing spirits of her husband. Loss of property, hopelessness as to his future prospects, the inoccupation to which poverty condemned him, combined to reduce him to a state bordering on insanity. 5 months after their arrival in England, he committed suicide. "You will ask me," continued Evadne, "what I have done since, why I have not applied for succour to the rich Greeks resident here, why I have not returned to my native country. My answer to these questions must needs appear to you unsatisfactory, yet they have sufficed to lead me on, day after day, enduring every wretchedness, rather than by such means to seek relief. Shall the daughter of the noble, though prodigal Zaimi, appear a beggar before her compeers or inferiors? Superiors she had none. Shall I bow my head before them, and with servile gestures sell my nobility for life? Had I a child, or any tie to bind me to existence, I might descend to this, but, as it is, the world has been to me a